Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dengan nama Bumi Setia Aryani MPD as the lecturer of thesis writing subject. In this occasion, I will present about my mini research proposal as the final subject of thesis writing subject. But before that, I will introduce myself. My name is Husnul Chairunisa. My student number is 2014026073. My mini research proposal has titled An Analysis of Euphemism in Science section of National Geographic magazine. And this is the table of content. The first is introduction, the second is review of related literature, the third is research method. First is background of the study. Language and society have an inextricably linked relationship. It cannot be denied that language cannot be separated from society. According to Feng Lee, 2015, language plays various functions in different social exchange and has different characteristics at different language level. And this refer to the branch of linguistics known as sociolinguistics, in which sociolinguistics is analyzed language in relation to society. And in relation to the study of social language, this present analysis focuses on one of the sociolinguistic study, namely euphemism. This euphemism become a phenomena in society in language and speech. The phenomena of euphemisms is used in a variety of contexts, including everyday conversation, the media, literature, politics, and sensitive topics. The researcher select the science section of National Geographic magazine as the subject for analysis related to euphemism because the use of terms in science can often be considered unpleasant and uncomfortable, causing it difficult for certain people to accept. As a result, the usage of euphemism is the context of science is essential to avoid misleading readers or listeners. Next is research question. There are two research questions. The first is what are the types of euphemism used in National Geographic magazine in the science section? The second is what are the functions of euphemism found in National Geographic magazine in the science section? Next is objective of the study. The first is to analyze the types of euphemism used in National Geographic magazine in the science section. The second is to find out the functions of euphemism found in the National Geographic magazine in the science section. Next is significance of the study. The first is theoretically. To give essential information and knowledge regarding the types and function of euphemism in the field of sociolinguistics, so that the result of this research hopefully can be used for further research in the future as a reference. Second is practically, the researcher hopes that the reader are able to enhance their knowledge regarding euphemism theory in order to use and implement euphemism appropriately. Then next is a scope and limitation of the study. The researcher used the theory from Allen and Burridge, 1991, to identify the types, and the theory from Burridge, 2012, to find out the function of euphemism. In addition, the researcher limits only 5 science magazines published on the 29th and 30 March, and 4 till 6 April 2023. Next is review of related literature. The first is definition of sociolinguistics. According to Labov, sociolinguistics is a study that analyzes the social components of language as well as the linguistic aspect of society. Sociolinguistics can help us understand how language functions in a larger social context and plays an important role in shaping social identity, social interaction, and communication styles in society. And the second is euphemism. Euphemism is a sociolinguistic study that studies how impolite words are changed into polite meanings, which are inferred from sentences. The aim is to minimize the impact of controversial or sensitive phrases or emotion. Next is the types of euphemism according to Allen and Burridge. There are 16 types, namely figurative expression, metaphor, flippancy, remodeling, circumlocution, clipping, the acronym, abbreviation, omissions, substitutions, hyperbole, understatement, borrowing, colloquial, jargon, and metonymy. Next is function of euphemism. According to Kate Burridge, 2012, the first is the protective euphemism is to filter and to avoid offense. The second is the underhand euphemism, to mystify and to misrepresent. The third is the uplifting euphemism, to talk up and to inflate. The fourth is the provocative euphemism, to reveal and to inspire. The fifth is the cohesive euphemism, to show solidarity and to help define the game. And the last is the ludic euphemism, is to have fun and to entertain. Next is National Geographic magazine. National Geographic is one of English magazine's website. It is a popular monthly journal that features articles, photographs, and maps related to science, geography, history, culture, and nature. Next is Science magazine. The science sections of National Geographic magazine highlights research and research project conducted by scientists around the world. The goal of the article is to inform readers about the most recent innovation in science and their relevance to our lives. Okay, next is previous study. There are two previous study. The first is an analysis of euphemism in CNN International News Sociolinguistic Approach by Desriani Gea, 2021. This research focused to analyze the types and explain the function of euphemism in CNN International News using Kate Burridge, 2012, and Rawson to identify the types of euphemism, and theory from Kate Burridge to explain the function of euphemism. The second is euphemism used in the Jakarta Post newspaper by Irma Dwi Astuti, 2014. This research focused to find out the types, styles, and function of euphemism used in the Jakarta Post newspaper. The researcher used the theory from Allen and Burridge to 1991 to identify the types of euphemism. Then the theory from Fishman to identify the styles, and the theory from Moon to identify the function of euphemism used in the Jakarta Post newspaper. From the two previous studies, the research that I will analyze has a different subject. The researcher will focus on the types and function of euphemism used in the science section of National Geographic magazine. Then the previous study that has been explained have a relationship with this topic, so the researcher uses them as the research of her study. Okay, next is research method. The first is research design. The researcher uses qualitative research with the descriptive method, since the data obtained was textual then numerical. And the researcher will be able to explain or define the types and function of euphemism found in the science section of National Geographic magazine using this method. The second is data and data search. The data are five science magazine texts by National Geographic magazine published on the 29 and 30 March and 4 until 6 April. And the researcher only focuses on the words, phrases, and sentences in the magazine. The third is research instrument. The research instrument of the study is the researcher herself, and it implies that researchers controls everything independently. Next is data collection. To collect the data, the researcher has several steps to take the data, to collect the data. The first is the researcher will read and comprehend the 5 selected science magazines section as the main object. And after reading the object, the researcher will identify and find out words that contain a lot of euphemisms in the object. After finding the data, the researcher will mark and write it down. Last, the researcher will classify the data discovered based on the types and function of each. Okay, the fifth is data analysis. After collecting the data, the researcher will continue to analyze the data. The data analysis technique will be carried out by describe and documenting the data that has been found on the object. Researcher will use the theory from Sugiono, 2016. The researcher will take several steps to analyze the data. The first is the researcher will systematically arrange the data that has been found in the science magazine. After compiling, the data will be categorized based on the types and function of each. Then the researcher will describe and give an explanation based on the types and function of the data. And the last, the researcher will draw conclusions of the data that has been explained based on the research question. And then the last is triangulation. The researcher choose the use of triangulation theory because the researcher uses two different theories from Allen and Burridge. 1991 to analyze the types of euphemism, and the second is theory from Barich 2012 to find the function of euphemism. I think that's all for me. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.